What's going on, everyone? John from 16 Views, and today is just going to be a little Q&A. In all honesty, I filmed the Q&A back in September, but then I kind of got distracted, and I half edited it, and it was half done, and then I got a new computer, and switched editing softwares, and now it's kind of like there's no point in going back and finishing that Q&A because it's so outdated. So on my personal Instagram and my 16 Views Instagram, I put out a little story asking if you guys had any questions about photography, videography, filmmaking, anything like that. And so with those questions, along with the questions that I got asked way back in 2021, I'm just going to kind of go through and answer them. So enjoy. So I'm going to start this Q&A off by not necessarily the Q&As, but just questions I generally get asked a lot. So the very first is, what camera should I get? This is a very cliche answer, but the best camera is the camera you have on you. And for most people, that is a smartphone. Do not go out and drop $500, $600, $1,000 on a camera if you don't know if you love photography, right? Like, go out, learn the basic, like, photography basics of, like, I almost said unit circle. No, not unit circle. Just learn the basics of the exposure triangle, aperture, ISO, shutter speed, just kind of using like a manual app on your phone. Figure out like stuff like framing, and shooting in RAW and that kind of stuff on your phone before you drop a ton of money on a camera. Now, if you do want, an actual camera, a mirrorless camera, and you're only going to do photography, you're not really going to do a whole lot of video work, I would get the camera I have right here, the Sony a6100. But if you do want to do a little more video work, and you need stuff like log profiles, I would get the Sony a6400, which is basically the exact same camera as this a6100, but just with like weatherproofing and log profiles. Now, if you don't know what a log profile is, you don't need the a6400, so just save $150. Get the a6100, you'll love it, it's great. So another question I get asked a lot is like, how are you so good at editing? And the answer to this is, I'm awesome. The real answer to it is I will either use a preset that I've made or I have downloaded from free off the internet, or maybe ones I've bought, and then I will just kind of use that as base, and then I'll kind of work my way to something I like. The second way is I will just adjust sliders randomly until I find something I like and just kind of keep going. And then the third way is I will go like search up a picture on Google of kind of the similar image to I'm editing, and then just look at different editing styles and how people have edited it, and just kind of use that picture as a reference, and then just kind of use my knowledge of tone curves and HSL and just kind of replicate those colors or that style. Another one is, how do I pose better for pictures? So me personally, I am not good. I don't have a good like fake smile. I don't personally think I look super good. I don't think my fake smile is good. So when I'm taking pictures like for my Instagram, I will honestly give the camera to my friend. I will turn on burst mode for him, and then I will just have them hold down burst mode as I just kind of go through a ton of poses. So I'll kind of like look around, I'll pretend like I'm laughing at a joke, I'll make jokes with my friend as they're holding down that shutter button, so it just seems much more natural, and my smile looks a lot more natural. Since they're taking a ton of burst shots, I have a ton to choose from, with my head, slightly tilted, kind of as I'm looking around or something like that. It's a pain to go through all of them once we're done and find the one that I like that's just kind of like that perfect shot. But I think it's personally worth it because I find that my photos when I'm doing that kind of like more natural candids look so much better, and I think I just look better in them. Okay, so now we're gonna get into the actual Q&A portion. These are all questions that people ask me on my Instagram. So the first one is, when did I start photography in general? So I've always really liked photography. Ever since I was a kid, I would go around with my parents. Where is it? Oh, here we go. I would go around with this camera. I don't know, it'll focus. Come on. Oh, yeah, I'd go around with this camera, and then just kind of take pictures of. I would take pictures of mailboxes, take pictures of houses just kind of in my neighborhood when I was like 6. Then I would take a string and just kind of string it in between the trees, and I would take the pictures I printed and just kind of like hang them with little clothes ties. You know, the little wood things? I'm blanking on the name right now. But I would hang them on that string as kind of like a gallery of sorts, and I would have, you know, the neighbors buy them for like $3. And this is when I was, 6 or 7. But that's kind of the first memory I have about like taking pictures. And then COVID started, and I kind of got a little more serious into it as like a personal project with like 16 views and everything. So the next question is, how did I start in YouTube? So with YouTube at the beginning of COVID in 2020, I kind of decided I wanted like a personal project. So I was like, oh, let me take something I'm passionate about, photography, and just kind of make something out of it. So I designed my website, 16 views. And then a couple months later, Maddie Hapoya, a YouTuber I follow, announced that he was doing like a film competition. And it was like, oh, how has like COVID affected just kind of your day-to-day life? And being 16 at the time, that's where 16 views came from. But being a sophomore in high school at the time, I was like, oh, I bet I can offer like a unique perspective about how COVID has affected high schoolers. So I got some of the kids who go to my school together, and I filmed a video just kind of asking them how COVID had affected them. And then I made that video. And to submit the video, I needed a YouTube channel. So I set up the YouTube channel, named it 16 views, submitted that video. And then I submitted that, and I was like, hey, I kind of like that. I think I might want to keep up YouTube. And here I am a year and a half later, still making videos with the YouTube channel, 1,200 subscribers later. So that's kind of how the YouTube thing started. Would you ever try to make a short film? So I did start to make a short film in like the spring, summer of 2021. And then I kind of got writer's block and stopped. So it's like half filmed, but it was basically about like taking school completely virtually for a whole year and just kind of, how it's like lonely and that sort of stuff. I don't think I'll be able to finish it now because it's been like almost a year, and I don't know. Now I'm not online for school anymore. So I don't think there's a point in finishing it. What is your favorite thing about photography? My favorite thing about photography is probably just going around to new places and just kind of taking pictures of everything I see. Like, I'm a person that I love traveling. Like, I think traveling is probably my favorite thing. I don't like being in one place for too long. Traveling kind of gives me that escape. It gives me a new scenery, that sort of stuff. You can say I kind of get cabin fever, but with everything. So traveling really gives me that escape, and I love traveling and then taking pictures of the new places I'm going. If I was to put that in like a short answer, would be going to new places and capturing those new places. But I also just really love editing pictures. I love like sitting down. I like sit down at my desk, open Lightroom, have 17 gigabytes worth of raw files in Lightroom, and then I'll just put my AirPods in, shuffle some music, and just kind of sit there and edit for hours. So I find that really like calming. If I ever need to like relax or just kind of like de-stress, that's what I'll do. I'll go to my computer, put my AirPods in, and just edit photos for hours. So yeah, those are my two favorite things. What camera do you use? So I use the Sony a6100, and I have the kit lens, which is a 16-50. I have, actually the kit lens is right here. So the 16-50. Then I have the kit lens, what is this, 55 to 210? Yeah, 55 to 210. And then the lens I'm filming on right now is a 35 f1.8. And I use that for a lot of portraits and these kind of talking head videos because it gives me a little more bokeh since it's a wider aperture, since it's a prime lens. Do you use your presets or make your own? I think I kind of answered this in another tangent I went on, but I have my own presets, but I also use presets that I've downloaded off the internet. Favorite camera? Sony a7 IV because it's just like the best all-around hybrid camera. Canon R5 because that camera is just a beast, but I think I am team Sony. But if I could have two full frame bodies, I might get a Canon R5. And then Sony a7S III because that's a little more video focused. So I think I would just use that for video or low light photography because the ISO performance is insane. So yeah, those 3 cameras. What's your favorite project you ever worked on? I think Dear Childhood was probably my favorite video. If you haven't watched that, I'll link it up here. But I think it was probably my favorite just because it was kind of a video that that just kind of encompassed like me and who I was, and just kind of something that I felt like I could be a little more like vulnerable. And I mean, not even vulnerable, but it really just encompassed like who I was as a person. Because I mean, it was recapping the last 18 years of my life. But I also kind of like how emotional it was. Like it really pulled on people's heartstrings. I got a lot of people text me and was like, "Oh my gosh, that made me cry." So I kind of like the emotion it brought. So I think that's probably my favorite video. Hardest photo to edit and why? Okay, so I don't want to say, I don't think I could choose like necessarily a single photo, but a general like class of photos that I find kind of tough to edit is like astrophotography. It's always like a little harder, at least for me, to like mess around with the colors for astrophotography. And like really like if I'm taking pictures of like the Milky Way, I find it a little tough to like, make sure like I brought out the Milky Way and really make sure it pops. I don't know if that makes sense, but astrophotography for me is probably the toughest to edit just because it's the most complicated, and like low light photography just in general is often a little tougher to edit. First photo you took and most recent. Okay. First photo, at least in Lightroom, the first photo I have is this picture. I don't know if you can see that. I'll just put it up. But this is when I was in Kiev with my grandparents. Kiev is the capital of Ukraine. And this was when I was in Kiev in 2018, I think. July 11th, 2018. That's the earliest picture I have, at least on Lightroom. I could probably find something from like when I was like 6. But Lightroom wise, that's the earliest picture. And then the most recent picture I have is this picture. I was filming some video and I wanted to make an Instagram post doing this. So I took a picture doing that and then edited it. So yeah, that's my most recent picture. How do you take photos with yourself in them? So I either use a tripod and then just control the camera from my phone and just kind of, do a timer or something. But more often I'm usually with someone. And so I'll basically first start with using them as a model and then just kind of like dial in all the settings I want and the exact angle I want. And then I will switch with them and I'll basically give them the camera and be like, okay, hold it right here. All the settings are already dialed in, so I just need you to press the shutter or, hold the shutter if I'm doing that kind of candid thing. And then I will go stand where they were standing and then they'll take a picture of me. And shout out to Anna, my cousin. I don't know if Anna's watching this, but thank you, Anna, because about half of my Instagram photos you took. So thank you. I appreciate it. So the next question is there a golden hour in the morning? Yes, there is a golden hour in the morning. It's just not quite as popular because quite often colors aren't quite as punchy in the morning. It doesn't last as long, so you have a tighter window. And then it's also the morning. So people don't like it because they have to like wake up early and stuff. I've always been interested in photography, but I don't know how to start. Any tips or advice? Okay, so this is gonna sound cliche, but like just start. Like there's no like specific like this is how you start photography, like step 1. Like I said, like kind of learn like the basics of like the exposure triangle and just kind of like framing, rule of thirds, and then just kind of like learn the basics of editing using an app like VSCO or Snapseed or the free version of Lightroom. Like just start, like just have fun with it. Not all of your photos are gonna be great, but they're gonna get better. Art in general is so subjective, so if you like it, then it's great. There's no specific starting place. Tips on how to take professional looking photos on iPhone. Portrait mode is a big one, I'd say, because portrait mode basically simulates the depth of field you'll get from like a mirrorless or DSLR camera. And honestly, like learn how to edit, like learn how to manipulate colors, how to kind of go for a certain mood. That's what I would say, kind of like, at least in terms of editing, like learn how to edit a photo to have a certain mood that matches what you're taking a picture of. Like have the photo tell a story. How far do I want to take videography or photography? Do I want to pursue it as a full-time job in the future? Okay, I'm gonna be straight with you. Photography isn't lucrative and it's really, really tough to get into and gain a following and like make a good amount of money off of it. I mean, that's why I see a lot of photographers like Peter McKinnon not just take photos and, you know, sell them. He has YouTube and he has like Pete's Pirate Life, and he has a ton of other streams of income. He's not just taking photos. He's making videos about his photos. So that's kind of where he started. So yeah, making money off photography is really tough. So like for me, a lot of people ask like, oh, are you going to film school, or are you like gonna major in photography? I'm not. As of today, I haven't gotten any of my college decisions back, but I should get a few in the next week or two. But I applied as an exploratory major, but I am probably going to go into business communications, maybe a minor in entrepreneurship. But like I realistically understand that I am not going to be a professional photographer. I'm not going to make my living off photography. That doesn't mean that like YouTube, as long as I have time for it, YouTube is probably going to be like a side hustle for me. And if I make it big, that's awesome. Like that'd be so great. I know I'm not going to make a living just selling photos or just being a photographer, but I hope to use my degree to kind of get into a photography field or a videography field, if that makes sense. So as of right now, this video is 32 minutes. Hopefully I'm able to cut it down and make it like at least 15, because a 18-minute Q&A video seems a little long. But yeah, thank you for everyone that put questions out. I really enjoyed kind of answering these. Made me feel like all professional, like, ooh, Q&A. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you learned a little something. If you're new here, and honestly, if you're still watching, thank you, because this is probably going to be a long video. So if you're still here, I really appreciate it. If you're new here, subscribe to the channel would be awesome. If you don't want to subscribe, that's fine. Maybe just like the video. I'm John from 16 Views. See ya. Photography is real. Ooh, I just spit a little bit. Long video. Palm tree. Beach Boy. If this doesn't turn out well,